There's an incredible £54,321 in tax-free cash to be won. What would you spend it on? The holiday of a lifetime? Or just sit back, relax and remove some of those day-to-day financial stresses? Lines close on the 1st of August, so make sure you don't miss out. For another chance to win, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB14 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 1st of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
Welcome to the Bakerloo line, where over the last year, 2 years, every single carriage seems to have been just absolutely covered in graffiti. So we're out this morning to try and do what the Mayor, Sadiq Khan, seemingly can't. Let's clean up the tube. Look, these doors used to be covered in graffiti, but no more. See, it's not impossible.
Not impossible it is, because there is so much that can actually be done. And just a few friends of mine, actually a guy called Joe Reeve, who organised this all, he's from the campaign group Looking for Growth. And he got in touch and said, do I want to come? And I was like, absolutely, I bloomin' do. Because I think we can show some pictures of some of our work, which was just on Sunday morning. And it was actually remarkably simple. What we did was we sprayed the graffiti with sort of anti-graffiti spray, eco-friendly anti-graffiti spray, actually, as it is.
I didn't know that was a thing.
A bit of scrubbing, and look, it just comes off. I mean, this stuff is not rocket science. A total lack of imagination, a total unwillingness to do anything about the sort of social decay that we're seeing in our cities in the country at the moment. A laziness, a profound laziness and a lack of political will at the heart of the governance of London that means that people are just like, oh, the washing machine's broken, we'll just live with this social decay. Well, no, you don't have to live with the social decay. You can come up with new ways to do things. You can give some people some sponges, some water and some graffiti spray and get that stuff off. It's not impossible. Pull your socks up, Sadiq. Do something about it.
GB News, the People's Channel.
It's 10 a.m. on Saturday, the 26th of July, live across the United Kingdom. This is Saturday Morning Live.
President Donald Trump has officially touched down in Scotland, and he's already sending shockwaves around the world. The US president warned our continent to act now on immigration because, in his words, it's killing Europe.
On immigration, you better get your act together, or you're not going to have Europe anymore. You got to get your act together.
While in Scotland, the President is set to meet the Scottish First Minister and our Prime Minister, with trade at the top of the agenda.
I like your Prime Minister. He's slightly more liberal than I am, as you've probably heard, but he's a good man. He got a trade deal done.
Well, the President is here in Scotland for some rest and relaxation, but it looks like his weekend is going to be filled with the meetings of European and UK leaders. Nevertheless, he's going to hit the links today as he enjoys his first day in Scotland on the Turnberry Golf Course.
Elsewhere, the resident doctors' strike enters its second day as they call for a 29% pay increase. Anna Riley is on the ground in Leeds.
Yes, junior doctors, now known as resident doctors, are asking for £23 an hour. It's going to be a 5-day strike. The government offered 5%, that's been refused, and the British Medical Association has not ruled out further strike action.
Elsewhere, Sir Keir Starmer has rejected calls to immediately recognise a Palestinian state. That's come after pressure from over 200 MPs signing a letter.
And Ofcom began enforcing the Online Safety Act yesterday, introducing age verification measures for adult content online. But does it go far enough? Well, Cabinet Minister Peter Kyle is suggesting a screen time limit for kids this week. Is that the answer? Well, we'll be debating that and much else.
And the Epping Forest District Council passed a motion on Thursday to call on the government to immediately close the hotel for the purposes of asylum processing. And we'll be joined by a councillor from the town to explain more about what's happening in the local area.
The biggest stories, the boldest opinions and the liveliest debates over the next 2 hours. I'm Miriam Cates.
And I'm Charlie Peters, and your weekend starts here. Well, Miriam, our reporter Tony Maguire says that Donald Trump is here for a bit of rest and relaxation, but he's come off the plane and immediately said that immigration is like a disastrous threat to Europe. He's here for 5 days. I'm slightly nervous, and I've seen other people saying this online as well, that during his time here, he might say something that could get him arrested.
Arrested, absolutely, or starts a diplomatic incident. He does have this extraordinary ability to just throw words out and people interpret them how they want, and he can change the whole political and global situation just by some of the things he says and then backtracks on. He is a fascinating character.
And that's power as well, because when he's said stuff, people realise often he truly means it, and he has the state capacity and the power and the resources to back up what he says. People laughed at him when he spoke about NATO, for example, a decade ago. Now they're all scrambling to increase their defence budgets. So I look forward to a few more sort of moments on the tarmac over the next 5 days.
Yeah, so he's not the most articulate of world leaders. He's not the best speaker, but he's been remarkably consistent in his worldview and the kind of ideas that he's put forward throughout his career. So it should be a fascinating few days, and we'll, of course, be covering it live on GB News. Our very own Bev Turner is up there in Scotland. And don't forget, we want to hear from you. So please do send us your views and opinions. Go on gbnews.com/yoursay.
But before we do anything else, let's get to Bethany Elsey for all your latest news headlines.
Thank you both. A very good morning to you. Your top stories from the GB newsroom at 4 minutes past 10. The US president is urging Britain to get its act together over what he called a horrible invasion of illegal migrants. Speaking to GB News after landing in Scotland, Donald Trump warned that Europe could be lost unless illegal migration is brought under control.
On immigration, you better get your act together, or you're not going to have Europe anymore. You got to get your act together. Biden was a total stiff, and what he allowed to happen, but you're allowing it to happen to your countries. And you got to stop this horrible invasion that's happening to Europe. This immigration is killing Europe.
Protests are expected in Edinburgh and Aberdeen after the president's arrival in Scotland. He's expected to play golf at his Turnberry resort before holding meetings with the European Commission President tomorrow, the Prime Minister on Monday and Scotland's First Minister on Tuesday. The Prime Minister says the UK is working urgently to get British aid onto planes and into Gaza after Israel said it would allow some deliveries by air. Sir Keir Starmer also said the UK is seeking to evacuate children who are in critical need of medical treatment. It's as the World Food Programme reports malnutrition in Gaza is surging and some 90,000 women and children need care urgently. Sir Keir called the scenes utterly horrifying and said the denial of aid was completely unjustifiable. He's under growing pressure from MPs after 221 of them signed a letter urging the PM to join France in recognising a Palestinian state. But he said he would only take that step as part of a wider peace plan. Up to 50,000 resident doctors in England are striking for a second day as part of a 5-day walkout over pay. Their union, the BMA, is demanding a 29% pay rise to erase what it says is 17 years of pay erosion. The government is insisting it won't improve its offer of 5.4%. It says resident doctors have received the highest pay rise of any public sector employees over the last 3 years. The Health Secretary, Wes Streeting, has condemned the strike as reckless and said the government would not allow the BMA to hold the country to ransom. Well, resident doctor Becky Lavelle spoke to GB News.
I would say that the chronic understaffing and under-resourcing of NHS hospitals put patients at risk every day. And part of why we're here today is to ensure that we keep enough staff on as doctors to actually keep the system going. Mr. Streeting's comments have been very disappointing, but to be honest, I'm not surprised anymore. This is one of the reasons why we've had to go on strike, because it's the only way to get the government to negotiate with us.
And keep your tab open. Pubs across the country can stay open longer tomorrow night to mark England's appearance in the Women's Euros final. Licensing hours have been extended, allowing pubs in England and Wales to keep serving until 1 a.m. The Lionesses are facing the world champions Spain, which kicks off at 5 p.m. in the Swiss city of Basel. You're up to date. I'll have more for you in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you, Bethany, and welcome back to Saturday Morning Live with Charlie Peters and Miriam Cates.
Now, President Donald Trump has urged Britain to get its act together on illegal migration. That's as he touched down in Scotland for a private visit this weekend.
Well, the US president is visiting his golf course at Turnberry, and on his trip across the Atlantic last night, he slammed what he called a horrible invasion after GB News' Bev Turner asked him about illegal immigration.
On immigration, you better get your act together, or you're not going to have Europe anymore. You got to get your act together. Biden was a total stiff, and what he allowed to happen, but you're allowing it to happen to your countries. And you got to stop this horrible invasion that's happening to Europe. This immigration is killing Europe.
But despite the president's swipe on immigration, he praised the Prime Minister's trade deal and hinted at warmer ties ahead of his official state visit in September.
I like your Prime Minister. He's slightly more liberal than I am, as you've probably heard, but he's a good man. He got a trade deal done. And, you know, they've been working on this deal for 12 years. He got it done. It's a good deal. It's a good deal for the UK. So, no, I'll be seeing him tomorrow, I guess, tomorrow evening.
Well, with us now is GB News reporter Tony Maguire, live in Scotland. Tony, very strong language from the US president as he arrives in the country, referring to that horrible invasion.
Yes, indeed. I mean, we heard there from the President's response to Bev's question. Obviously, you know, in the shadow of events over the last week or so, and we've seen the national outrage around these migrant hotels and communities really standing up. And very much, if you look at President Trump's record in his first 6 months in office, well, you know, immigration is an issue that our two countries share. Now, Bev was talking earlier on about just how successful, you know, President Trump has been, and I believe, if I heard that fact right, last month, no illegal migrants had entered America at all. So I think that what we are now seeing is that, you know, that will be a big talking point, because I think President Trump, he has a very strong worldview. He is very intelligent, likes to keep track of what his allies and enemies, I would say, are doing around the world, and he will be aware of this kind of crisis, this struggle that the UK is dealing with right now, and I wouldn't be surprised if that forms quite a big part of Keir Starmer and President Trump's conversations, be them off or on camera later on this weekend. And, you know, but just to kind of bring it back to this, something of a historic event, of course it is. This is a presidential visit. This is not a state visit. It's being described as a private visit. President Trump is officially here to open his new golf course up in Aberdeen, but as a proprietor of two golfing resorts here in Scotland, he's spending his first few days here in Turnberry, and we've just maybe seen in the last few minutes, hard to tell from this angle of the Turnberry course behind me, but you can see a huge convoy of about 30 or so golf carts, vehicles, some rather big Cadillacs into the mix as well, heading down to the links. Now, the rain has just started, but we have a good idea that President Trump, no meetings in his diary today, that he's expected to hit the course. And it's been a couple of years since President Trump has been in Scotland, and we know all too well how much he loves it here, so we can expect him to make the most of today, hitting the golf course, the Ailsa course, a really world-class golf course here on the Ayrshire. And then tomorrow we know he's going to be meeting Ursula von der Leyen, and they'll be kind of talking about the US-Europe relationship, and we know that that has also seen quite a lot of strain over the last few months, not just with the tariffs, but a lot of back and forth between the EU and America. But of course, our attention is going to be primarily focused on Keir Starmer's meeting with the President, which is going to be here at Turnberry, I believe, on Monday. John Swinney, our First Minister in Scotland, he is also scheduled to be meeting the President. We don't have an exact time for that yet, but you know, John Swinney spoke to me candidly earlier in the week about what he hopes to bring to the President's attention, not just the tariff situation with the UK's two biggest food and drink exports being Scotch whisky and Scottish salmon, both of them currently industries hurting with the US tariffs, but he will, no doubt, bring them up. And also, you know, the SNP has a way of drafting international policy and foreign policy, so we know that he is going to want to talk to the President about the ongoing situations in Ukraine and Gaza. But that's at the business end of this trip, and certainly today at least, if the weather holds, President Trump is expected to have at least one day of this 5-day trip out on the Greens.
Thank you, Tony, for that report. Well, joining us now is US political commentator Eric McElroy. Eric, thank you so much for joining us this morning. Trump causes controversy wherever he goes in the world. This is supposed to be a leisure trip, a holiday, but he's already set political wheels in motion. How is this being reported in the US? Are American residents interested in Trump's visit to Scotland?
Shows how truly unprecedented his presidency is. As you said, this is a private visit that he's doing. He is using the office of the president to profit off of his role. And basically, every time someone books a round of golf at one of these golf courses around the world that he owns, they are handing money directly to the president of the United States. And he's done this profiteering so much on so many levels, where it's his perfume or his Bibles, that we lose perspective on how strange and questionably legal this is. But he does it all the time. He's done it for years. And it's one thing that people just lose track of in the noise of everything else.
Eric, we've seen Donald Trump arriving, talking about the issue of migration. According to our reporter, Tony Maguire, it seems he's aware of the situation we have in Britain right now with these protests outside migrant hotels. But I wonder if the president will also be aware that last night some users on X were unable to watch footage of those protests due to the Online Safety Act requiring limits on some content. We heard from a minister in the week saying that, Peter Kyle, saying that they could shut down X. Obviously, American tech bosses very concerned about this legislation. Do you think there's a chance that Donald Trump may intervene on that this week as well?
If there's a chance for Donald Trump to intervene on something, he'll do it. I mean, that's why he uses language like this, dehumanizing language, in my view, talking about people. There's a global migrant crisis and a refugee crisis, and saying that a country is being invaded versus talking about the causes of that, how we fight that globally and deal with that, is classic Trump. And Trump is all about deflection at the moment. He is desperate to find something to hold on to that can allow him to stop talking about Jeffrey Epstein and the controversy that he's facing there against his own base, which are very upset that he hasn't released the files, and his FBI haven't released the files that he promised that they said were sitting on Pam Bondi's desk, his attorney general. And so anything he can talk about to create noise and conversation away from that controversy, I mean, that's probably one of the reasons why he's here now.
It is an extraordinary contrast, though, isn't it, with President Joe Biden, who for the last year or two of his term in office said virtually nothing, did no press conferences, was not available for interview. I mean, perhaps Donald Trump talks a little bit too much, but it's good to know what the president thinks about things, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, Donald Trump's flood the zone strategy has worked very effectively for him. And as someone who, was on the Democratic side of policies and wanted Joe Biden to succeed and do better, there's a lot of criticism to be laid at his feet about the way he approached messaging and so on. But what Donald Trump does is he says so much so often that we discount things that he says. Like he recently made up a story about his father or his uncle knowing the Unabomber when it wasn't even possible for them to meet because his uncle had passed away before the Unabomber in the United States terrorist was identified. So, he's very good at more information being out there so that we can't even keep up with what it is.
All right, Eric McElroy, thank you very much for joining us on Saturday Morning Live. This morning, Miriam, I have to say, I mean, Eric talking about dehumanising language there. I think most people in Britain are so fed up now of the small boats crisis that they hear language like invasion and they just think, well, yeah, of course, that's exactly what's going on.
Absolutely. I think 73% of the public now think that immigration has been far too high, and well over half place it as their number one political issue, whereas 2 decades ago it was the NHS, the economy. Absolutely, people are coalescing. But I think the reason that Trump really enrages people is because, yes, he has solved their illegal immigration crisis across the Mexican border. But if you look at actual immigration numbers into America, it's very similar to Europe in terms of the percentage of the population that were foreign-born. So some people would say he should get his own house in order before commenting.
It's a ginormous and much richer country, you could also say, whereas many parts of Europe are taking many more in comparison to their steady population as it is already.
Well, if you look at
parts of the world that are very different as well to Europe.
Absolutely, there are many differences, but in terms of the percentage of the population that's foreign-born in America, it's about 15%, which is exactly where Britain, France, Germany are. So if you're talking about the kind of corrosion of common culture...
Well, here's Trump live on that golf course in Turnberry in Scotland, clearly already enjoying the start of his 5-day break. He loves Britain, doesn't he?
Even the Scottish weather, I mean, it's pretty grey, isn't it?
He won't mind. I mean, he loves being here. I think we don't utilise this enough. The fact that the President of the United States loves the United Kingdom. I mean, regardless of your views on this presidency, in the first term, we had Trump in Britain and we had these protests going on and people were being extremely negative about him, that big flotilla in Westminster. Regardless of your view, we should be grateful, really, that the most powerful man in the world loves Britain and particularly loves Scotland.
It's really interesting to compare the reaction to the visit of President Trump to the visit of President Emmanuel Macron of France a couple of weeks ago. Actually, Macron said some pretty challenging things about Britain and how Keir Starmer is responsible for the pull factor that brings illegal immigrants over here. And yet that didn't really receive much of a reaction. But when Trump criticises Britain and Europe, it does tend to inflame people slightly more.
Yeah,
I would say.
Slightly more. Right, well, we've got a bit more coming up on Saturday Morning Live, but next we'll be discussing the online safety measures for children. They're coming into force for web giants across Britain. But will the government's proposal of screen time limits on apps for kids really work? We'll be debating that and some discussions about censorship being caused by that legislation.
But next up, Sir Keir Starmer is facing pressure from MPs to officially recognise Palestine as a state. We'll be discussing that and all of today's top stories next on Saturday Morning Live on GBNews, Britain's news channel.
Five hosts, 5 opinions, 5 fearless debates, 5 unfiltered takes on the day's news.
5 reasons not to be anywhere else on Saturday night.
This is the Saturday 5. You got me good there. Britain's biggest Saturday night TV show.
It's not a bad brand.
Yeah. Uncensored.
Very, very racy tonight.
On the unpredictable.
What did she say? Can you translate it for us?
And always entertaining.
And how can a country go from being led by William Wallace Saturday nights from 6 p.m. only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
You're going to want to stay tuned, trust me.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Welcome back to Breakfast. Now, experts are warning that lithium suppliers will not keep up with the demand for electric cars.
Yeah, researchers say domestic lithium production could grow as much by about 10 times what it currently is by 2030, but will still fall short of demand.
So this morning we're asking whether Labour's green car policy is unachievable.
This policy tells you everything you need to know about net zero. This isn't about giving people free choices about the technologies they want to use. This is about saying we're going to have mandatory targets. It's a sad indictment on our country if we've just normalised the government making these fundamental decisions for people's lives. The CEBR has warned that this policy might cost the country. That's rigid targets for battery electric vehicles, known as the ZEV mandate. 80% of all vehicles will have to be electric vehicles by 2030, rising to 100% by 2035. And that policy is expected to cost £400 billion to the UK economy. And of course, car makers as well have warned that this policy is not achievable.
The latest stats say 47% of vehicles sold in Britain are now EVs. We're halfway there after just 2 years of the electric mandate. We've another 5 years to go. It's speeding up. And this charge that lithium, we're going to have a shortage of lithium, is nonsense. What it says is that there may be the consumption of lithium is increasing, so the domestic production will not be sufficient, but there's plenty in the world.
GB News, the People's Channel.
This is Britain's newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
So before the break, we saw some live pictures of Trump at his golf course in Scotland. Of course, he's here in the UK for a 5-day visit. Not an official visit, mostly leisure, playing golf. But, Charlie, he's already got involved in politics, hasn't he?
Absolutely, referring to an invasion of migrants in Europe, saying it's a horrible invasion taking place. He said he had to stop and that this was an issue right across Europe. He said to many countries in Europe, some leaders have not let it happen, he said. They're not getting the proper credit. He says, I could name them to you right now, but I'm not going to embarrass the other ones. I presume perhaps because he's in the country of one of those leaders. He says, but stop this immigration is killing Europe. And in true presidential style, he moves off from talking about that to play a round of golf.
Play a round of golf in his buggies there. We're seeing a number of golfers there. I mean, the Scottish weather is not that great, but as you said, Charlie, he just loves the UK. I'm sure he'll be happy with a round of golf. But, I mean, he has made clear that he gets on with Keir Starmer. He's paid respect to Starmer as our Prime Minister. He said, slightly jokingly, of course, he's more liberal than I am. That's an understatement. But he's playing the diplomatic role well, isn't he? He's trying to maintain good relationships, even with leaders who he disagrees with politically.
Yeah, live pictures here now of Donald Trump on that golf course, surrounded by staff. I wonder if the Secret Service are a sort of camouflaged in golfer gear. I imagine they are. The funny thing in Britain, they always stand out, don't they? You see a few blokes walking around, sort of ex-parachute regiment, SAS lads.
Cables falling out there.
Yeah, they're quite clear. Whereas I think the Secret Service in the US, they do, maybe they've got better resources.
Maybe
they can blend in.
To get a job as a Trump bodyguard, you have to have a very, very good golf handicap. I expect that's one of the requirements.
Well, to look through the top stories of today, let's go to our paper review panel. I'm not sure about their golf handicap, but we're joined by the head of campaigns at the Good Growth Foundation, Teresa Biskoff, and the journalist at Mail Online, Lettice Bromowski. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. How are you doing?
Good, good. Very well, thank you.
Brilliant. Miriam, where should we start?
Well, should we start with the BMA doctors' strikes? Because we're going to be covering that later in the programme. And far less public support this time than the last time the resident doctors went on strike.
Yeah, no, that's right. We, at the Good Growth Foundation, did some research just a couple of weeks ago, and we found that over a majority of people aren't in support of the strikes this time around. And actually, that's slightly higher for Labour 24 voters and Labour to Reform switchers, obviously important constituencies for this government and something that Wes Streeting will be thinking about a lot.
And let's looking at these concerns being raised by the BMA, have they taken the government for mugs a bit here? Because they had this back and forth negotiations with them. Wes Streeting came in last year, sort of made out as though he'd solved this problem, but it's just come back to bite him again.
No, exactly, and it does seem a little bit like that. Wes Streeting, I mean, it was only a few years ago when he was out of power saying, just get everyone around the table, it'll be fine, it'll be easy and simple. And he's now sort of finding out the hard way that it's not like that. Obviously, these doctors got a 22% rise last year, and they had strikes then. In the time that they were striking then, it's thought that there was around 66,000 appointments that had to be changed or moved or were missed. And now it seems we're back in the same place we were then. So the fact that public apathy around this topic is increasing, it's not that surprising because people are looking at this thinking, well, you have got your pay rise in this. If you get another pay rise now, say, and your demands are met, what about the nurses? What about the teachers? What about all these other public sector workers that don't have the same amount given to them?
Yeah, and what I'd also just add, by the way, is that the public view the NHS as the #1 most important priority over the next decade when looking at the government's priorities. That's above crime, that's above the economy. And so, again, as you say, it's not surprising that this is how they feel.
David Frost, Lord Frost, wrote a piece, I think in the Telegraph yesterday, saying that public sector workers should not be allowed to strike because they're paid by the taxpayer and because essentially they have a monopoly. The customer, if you like, can't go elsewhere. There isn't another business providing the same service. What's your view on that? Do you think we should ban public sector workers from going on strike?
I mean, I don't think necessarily that that's the right move. I think there's a wider discussion probably to be had around that. And I do think that, you know, they're right to ask for more money when it's just not in line with what would be fair at that moment in time. But as we've heard, they have just had a raise. The public is not in support of this. So it's just a very difficult moment for the government.
Let's go back to that footage of Donald Trump, his arrival, because I think this really should be leading our conversation today. Now, Bev Turner asked a question about immigration. She's just been telling me that nobody else was asking about immigration when his plane touched down. People were talking about this Epstein story. That's very interesting, of course, as well. But the language he used, saying you've got to stop this horrible invasion that is happening to Europe, he would never have said that had GB News not asked the question. And Lettice, that's quite a significant intervention, isn't it, from the president?
It's striking language. I'm going to say that Trump always uses rather inflammatory and kind of striking language. I would say that in this particular scenario, he's feeling like he's speaking from a position of power on this. In terms of illegal immigration that's been going on in the US at the moment, he is seeing, his huge crackdown. There are less illegals coming into the country. The numbers in detention centres are higher than they've ever been. And it's all quite a public display of it. You know, he's got people filming people going onto the planes. People can see it happening. Whereas in our country, by comparison, we're struggling. We're struggling a lot. People are still coming over on small boats. We've had 22,000 this year, and it's fueling this unrest that we've seen in Epping, in other places like Canary Wharf. And that is what the government should be really concerned about now, is it's now creating this disturbance within our own country.
Theresa, what impact do you think Trump's words will have? I mean, it will inflame the left-wing press. It will probably encourage people on the right who are concerned about this. But does a foreign president, even one from such a powerful country, actually have what it takes to change the situation in Britain?
Well, I think what's important to point out here is that we looked at the public's perception of the US versus other potential partners, and the public don't really like Trump very much. They're very much moving away from considering the US as a trusted partner over, for example, our European partners. And so it's likely that this intervention will actually fall on deaf ears for many. Of course, immigration is a really, really important issue. But as I said earlier, things like the NHS rank much, much higher. So I think what's important here is that we...
Do they, though? Because I saw some polling last week that showed that, actually, I think it was 53%, I have to look it up, of the public now rate immigration as their #1 priority. It's slightly moved into the most important category.
Yeah, well, it probably depends on, the question you're asking. When we asked about the government's priorities over the next 10 years, the NHS came top compared to all other issues. And so I think when we look at this matter of immigration, which, as you've said, obviously is a big problem in the UK, a lot of people are worried about that. It's not only Reform supporters, it's Labour supporters, Conservative supporters, too. I think it's really important that we slightly reframe the debate a little bit, because on the one hand, immigrants do actually play a pretty important role when it comes to our economy, but Brits feel left behind. Brits feel like they're not being, given the opportunity, the skills to actually get the jobs they want, to actually grow the economy on their own. And I think that's the slight tension there.
Well, Lettice, we've had record levels of mass immigration for decades now and no economic growth since 2005, really, for almost over 2 decades now. So perhaps the public are waking up to the fact that there isn't this automatic connection between mass immigration and economic growth, and more interventions from someone like Donald Trump may push that conversation further.
I think that Donald Trump will intervene whether it's helpful or not in any scenario. I think that there is, we are struggling to get this done at the moment, and the government's stance on how they do that is really the next step. I think one of the key issues for them should be processing people faster. If people do not have a right to be in this country, we do need to be able to deport them. And then the other thing should be stopping them coming across in the first place in small boats, stopping them before they get in the boats. We're meant to have this great big deal with France, but that doesn't seem to quite be working at the moment, despite us paying them hundreds of millions of pounds to do it. So I think there are issues where we should focus on more than moving people around in hotels to moving them to houses and spending hundreds and hundreds of millions of pounds on getting them into housing.
Looking at Donald Trump's intervention there, you said inflammatory language. I think most people actually are increasingly seeing that as very legitimate, just saying this is a horrible invasion. You've got people turning up from God knows where and associated with really quite unsavoury activity in some of these hotels, and lots of concerns being raised by you were in Epping with me 2 days ago at that protest. Yes. They're just ordinary people quite distressed by these arrivals. What else Donald Trump could do on this is talk about the Online Safety Act and how last night, when protests were happening in Ashfield, some users of X online weren't able to watch those protests because of the Online Safety Act. We know that people in Washington are really concerned about tech censorship. They're very concerned about free speech. J.D. Vance made that a core part of his speech at the Munich Security Conference. Do you think that's an area where we could have Donald Trump intervening as well?
Again, I'm sure he will intervene on it no matter what. I do think that, there is people's right to be able to watch his protest as much as there is a right to be at a protest and protest against things that you don't like. His intervention on the subject will probably definitely come, as I'm sure that we need to be having these conversations.
Well, much more to discuss on that, I'm sure. Thank you, Teresa and Lettuce. We'll be seeing you again in an hour. But still to come, the government is promising to get tough on asylum hotels, but will it make any difference? We'll be speaking to a local councillor in Epping shortly.
Now, but first, let's get your latest news headlines with Bethany Elsey.
The latest headlines from the GB newsroom at 10:30. The US president is urging Britain to get its act together over what he called a horrible invasion of illegal migrants. Speaking to GB News after landing in Scotland, Donald Trump warned that Europe could be lost unless illegal migration is brought under control. The Prime Minister says the UK is working urgently to get British aid onto planes and into Gaza after Israel said it would allow some deliveries by air. The UK is also seeking to evacuate children who are in critical need of medical treatment. Thousands of resident doctors in England are striking for a second day as part of a 5-day walkout over pay. Their union, the BMA, is demanding a 29% pay rise. And 18 people have been killed and 24 others have been injured after a bus overturned in the Andes Mountains in central Peru. Survivors are saying there were mechanical issues before the bus crashed. You're up to date. I'll have more for you in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Up next, we'll be speaking to a local councillor in Epping after a debate continues to swirl about where we should be housing asylum seekers crossing on small boats.
And as new elements of the Online Safety Act come into force, we'll be debating Peter Kyle, the Technology Minister's idea that children should have 2-hour limits on social media apps each day. Much more to come.
Hello and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. Plenty of fine weather around this weekend, but not all the time. There will be some rain, at least at first today, turning to showers and in between a few sunny spells, not quite as warm as it's been over the last couple of days. Now, a lot of cloud across the UK this morning and showery rain here and there, more persistent rain into western Scotland, and then some heavy showers developing through northern England and increasingly eastern England, perhaps the odd thundery downpour. The best of the sunshine and dry weather will be towards South Wales and southwest England, temperatures reaching 24 or 25 Celsius. Then we go into Saturday night. Some longer spells of rain will reach western Scotland and parts of Northern Ireland, but it stays mostly dry across the south and southwest into Wales, just the odd shower there across mid Wales, but showers still going through East Anglia, eastern England and potentially over the Pennines as well as the southern uplands. Thicker cloud there for Northern Ireland, Western Scotland, some more persistent rain. As I mentioned, showers ahead of that, mostly dry for Shetland and Orkney aside from the odd shower. And then really overnight, we lose the showers in most places, but the more persistent rain in Western Scotland turns heavier for a time, particularly over Western Hills. And that will begin to feed into parts of Cumbria, as well as the northeast of Scotland as the night progresses. Further south, dry with clear spells. The best of any clear spells will be towards the southeast, a relatively warm night and a bright start there for the east and the southeast as we begin Sunday. A lot of cloud across the rest of the country. Dribs and drabs of rain into parts of northern England and the Midlands, turning into showers by the afternoon. Just about anywhere could catch a shower as the day wears on, but the heaviest downpours will be across Scotland and Northern Ireland. In between, some bright spells and feeling warm in any sunshine in the south, highs of 24 Celsius.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world, but look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m, only on GB News.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. It's nearly 20 to 11, and Ofcom began enforcing the Online Safety Act yesterday, introducing age verification measures for adult content online.
But the Science Secretary, Peter Carl, has suggested another measure this week, proposing now a 2-hour screen time limit per app for children's mobile phones.
So would such a usage cap per platform actually be any good? Would it solve any of the problems with how our kids interact with the online world? Well, joining us now to debate this is online grooming expert and former Met investigator John Taylor and parenting expert Roma Norris. Roma and John, thank you very much for joining us. John, let's start with you. The problem that the government and many parents are trying to solve here is that these social media apps are highly addictive and children are spending hours and hours a day scrolling, doom scrolling through the different platforms and missing out on an awful lot of life. Do you think such an idea of a limit per day could be effective, John?
Good morning, Charlie. Good morning, Miriam. I'd actually say no at this stage. And the reason I say that, it's all well and good what Peter Carl was saying, but 2 hours per app. So if you take a 13, 14-year-old or even younger child in that sense, then you're looking at, well, social media, Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok, then you're looking at Discord, and then you're looking at direct messaging. So if it's per platform, I've just mentioned 8 hours worth. So straight away, you've got the whole issue per platform. So if it was a 2-hour limit per day for screen time, brilliant, that might work. However, how do you define screen time? If they're at home doing 4 hours education on their computer, that is still screen time. So we go back to that argument, well, why is it damaging a child? Well, what's happening here? And so that's the whole issue about screen time. We all use screen times. I'm old enough out of us to know that when screens came in, computers, we were told 45 minutes, walk away from the screen. We all had these issues. But at the moment, the way that technology's gone and the reliance on screens and the go-to device, meaning a smartphone, and the social internet usage, yes, children are going to use it far too much. They do. But is that affecting them? And there isn't really enough evidence at this stage or empirical type of research to show that there is big issues. Educationally, we get better results at GCSE and then A-levels every year. So I think, yes, we can limit, That can be done by device, and it can be done through educating parents to actually be part of it. There's a lot more the government could do with legislation rather than just this.
Roma Norris, there's not enough evidence to suggest that we need these limits because it's not affecting children. Your view?
I don't think whether it's affecting children is in debate here. We know that social media has a detrimental effect on our kids. It increases their level of anxiety. We're seeing teenagers that are more isolated than any generation before. And yeah, I think this is a great proposal. It might not be perfect, but it's about time our government made a serious attempt to catch up with an industry that's grown faster than our ability to protect children from it. And this says, you know, we're here, we're taking responsibility, and we're sorry we left you to manage alone.
Roma, it sounds like what you're suggesting there is sort of good intentions and good vibes approach to policy, showing that we're here. But you know, these have real effects on industry, on how we can access information online as well. It's not just about sort of showing support. I mean, last night, some footage from Migrant hotel protests is not available because of the Online Safety Act. Are you concerned about ministers like Peter Kyle doing more and more interventions and affecting freedom of speech?
Freedom of speech, I don't know about that. I mean, we're looking at it's a sort of piecemeal proposal that they're making here. As John said, you know, 2 hours on each platform, it's nothing really. But I do feel we need to start somewhere, and starts do matter. The answer is yet to be explored quite clearly, and it's going to be an ongoing conversation. But where do we start then?
John, do you think that big tech has brought this problem on themselves? They know everything about us. They know how old we are. They know what we're watching. It's perfectly within their power to prevent adult content from being seen by children, but they don't do it for monetary reasons. How do we solve this problem and genuinely protect children without infringing on free speech, freedom of expression, and people's right to do business?
Yeah, I've been working in this area now for over 25 years. And I've been giving some suggestions. I honestly do believe many MPs aren't listening to the right people. The two things I would do straight away. You can create legislation we have with the Online Safety Act. Well, let's create better legislation. What do I mean by that? Well, straight away, recommended algorithms. What do you say to platforms is don't allow it. Say you cannot have it. That's the problem. That's one of the biggest issues regarding the damage to children and what they can see. You take away that power straight away. You take away monetization. Well, that is the fact that the more images and more explicit images you post, you'll get money from Snapchat, from TikTok, from Instagram, from OnlyFans. Take that away. Mobile data. We're talking screen time and issues here. Well, let's look at it. You've got a device like a smartphone. You have Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi at school is blocked. It's filtered. So they can't actually use it. So it's the mobile data they're using. Well, the mobile data comes from the account with a company that supplied the smart device to the parent. Right, so when the parent buys a smartphone, simply these companies say, who is it for? Under 16, you can't have mobile data, end of. So those are three aspects of legislation you could put in place very quickly, and I guarantee that would protect children a lot more. Not this 2 hours, because the devices already do that. The Apple, the Android, they do that. But parents don't know. So as I said, I spend all the time going into schools, and I'll tell parents, I'm sure Roma does the same, this is what you should be doing. But unfortunately, still the number is 60% of parents.
OK, honestly, John, I'm going to get a line from Roma here. Roma, are you concerned that with all these interventions on screen time, on access to certain information, more children might be pushed into the dark web trying to circumvent this regulation?
That thought hadn't crossed my mind. Yeah, I mean, kids are really canny with tech, much more than we are, and they do find ways around things. It's a possibility, and I don't think that's a reason for us to not try to set any limits at all. You know, illicit behaviour continues to happen regardless of policy across the board. So I think we just need to take steps that
ask tech companies to stop profiting from childhood addiction.
Roma, John, thank you very much for your intervention this morning. Many more discussions on that topic to come.
Yeah, still to come, we'll be joined by the Epping Council member Holly Whitbread as the government promises to crack down on asylum hotels. That wasn't her, that was our other set. But will it make any difference? But first, if you are in search of some holiday sun, here's the forecast for some of the top European destinations.
I forecast a perfect holiday in the sun.
Weather looking good then?
For sure, and no worries about our travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
Big contrast across Europe this weekend. Thunderstorms for Central Europe, cooler than normal in Spain, very hot across Greece and Cyprus. We've got a keen breeze continuing to blow through Portugal into the Canaries and Madeira. Plenty of sunshine for Spain, but actually temperatures limited, particularly towards northeast Spain. A few showers there for south of France, but the liveliest downpours will be through the Alps, and then it stays hot in Greece, at least until the start of next week.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
You've read the headlines, you've heard what those in power have to say. How about now we actually get to the truth?
They would pay attention.
We go beyond the political theatre and tell you what's really going on behind the scenes. For a massive council tax hike, one of the biggest in the UK. Others follow their lines, but we go off script.
You sound like a broken record, you say that week after week.
Cutting through the narratives and giving you unique perspectives. That's Ben Leo tonight, Saturdays and Sundays from 9 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there short and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Well, the Home Office has said it is working to restore hotels and close hotels after a council unanimously voted to urge the government to shut down a hotel housing asylum seekers following a series of protests around the site.
Well, multiple demonstrations have been held outside the Bell Hotel in Epping in Essex after an asylum seeker was charged with alleged sexual assault. He denies the allegation and will stand trial in August.
Well, the Epping Forest District Council passed a motion on Thursday to call on the government to immediately and permanently close the hotel for the purposes of asylum processing. The council unanimously voted in favour of the motion as a protest was going on outside.
Well, joining us now is the Conservative councillor for Epping Forest District Council, Councillor Holly Whitbread. Holly, thank you so much for joining us. What's your view of the protests that have been taking place over the last few days? Do you think the police have handled them well?
It's been a very difficult situation. I mean, the police are in an impossible situation. Obviously, a lot of people who did protest quite rightly, local people making the point that I fully agree with, that the hotel should be immediately closed. There were some people, both from the left and right, who were there to agitate and cause trouble. I would say, actually, the protests on Thursday before the council meeting were entirely peaceful. And I think if other protests had been conducted in that way, things wouldn't have turned quite so sour.
And Holly, I was at that protest on Thursday, covering it for the Channel. I met a lot of people who told me, Epping locals, that they have now set the standard. They've shown that if you protest, if you get outside an asylum hotel, peacefully put forward your message, the pressure is on to then shut it down. Do you think we could see those sorts of protests now echoed right across the country?
Well, unfortunately, we haven't managed to get the hotel closed down yet. I mean, we've done everything in our power and we continue to do everything in our power, democratically, diplomatically, and also considering potential legal routes as well. So whilst I think it's sending a strong message to the government if the protests are done peacefully, unfortunately, I think sometimes the violent side can undermine the message. But what I would say is that it's important that people's message is heard in a kind of safe and democratic way. So I support that completely.
Now, Holly, you will have seen that President Trump has landed in the UK in Scotland last night, and he's already made some comments about immigration in Europe, saying that it's a horrible invasion that we're seeing. Do you think those comments will help local people who want to protest against these hotels, or could they risk sparking potentially more unrest?
Well, I don't think he's saying anything new. I mean, you know, I share residents' concerns. I share people across the country's concerns around the illegal immigration crisis. Unfortunately, my town in Epping has had to take its unfair share of the burden of that crisis. So I don't think Trump's saying anything new. And I think the people protesting on the streets or signing the petitions and calling on the government to close these hotels, they're really saying the same thing. So I think certainly it's a topical remark, but I don't think he's adding anything to the debate necessarily.
Holly, very quickly, at that protest on Thursday, there was a significant police presence. At one point, it seemed to me more officers than protesters. Do you think that Essex Police had basically been told by the Home Office, get a grip of this now, we're worried about this spreading across the country?
I think the police have got an incredibly difficult balance to strike between making sure that people can protest peacefully, but also making sure that local people are safe. Obviously, the police presence was huge. I live literally 2 minutes from the council offices, so I was quite shocked when I come out my front door to walk to the meeting and the police presence was so high. I mean, it was reassuring for a lot of local people. It kind of made them feel that there wasn't going to be the trouble they've seen previously. So I think they have got a very difficult balance.
Holly, I'm afraid we'll have to leave it there. We've got to end it there. Councillor Holly Whitbread, thank you very much. Coming up on Saturday Morning Live, we'll be live in Scotland to get the latest on President Trump's visit. Let's have the weather first.
A positive outlook through the night will power through to a bright day ahead. Boxed Home Battery Storage, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, this is your GB News weather update provided by the Met Office. Mixed is probably a good word to describe this weekend. Whilst high pressure is trying to build in from the Atlantic and provide some relatively settled conditions, it's not quite managing to reach all across the UK, and so we do still have some showers around. They've generally been on the light side so far this morning, but as we head into the afternoon, we could see them turning heavier at points, particularly across parts of East Anglia and other areas of eastern England. We could see some quite sharp downpours, maybe even the odd rumble of thunder to watch out for into this afternoon. Will generally remain quite cloudy across the eastern half as well. The areas further towards the west, though, should see some sunshine breaking through, and we'll see temperatures peaking here at around 25, maybe 26 degrees Celsius. Some sunshine also for Northern Ireland and Northern England, but probably keep the brollies on hand in case a few scattered showers do crop their way up. And similar conditions for the eastern side of Scotland as well, quite nice in the sunshine here. But we'll start to see longer spells of rain arriving for western Scotland later this afternoon and into the evening. Those could turn heavy for a time as well. It will be relatively breezy into the night as that system pushes its way in. Quite a damp night to come for northwest Scotland, but elsewhere we will start to see some clearer spells developing, and temperatures will be on the relatively mild side, and our towns and cities will hold up in double-digit figures, but we could just drop down into single figures where you hold on to some of those clearer skies first thing tomorrow morning. This rain in the northwest could also provide the odd rumble of thunder across Scotland as we head throughout Sunday. It will eventually break up more into a showery situation as it pushes across northern England and into parts of Northern Ireland as well. Again, there'll be some showers developing elsewhere during the day. A reasonable amount of cloud around tomorrow though, so temperatures will be a notch down, more around 23-24 degrees Celsius as our high temperatures. Monday, though, looks generally on the dry side for many of us, but the showers are quick to return as we head into the middle part of the week. Maybe warmer and more humid for some of us as well, though. Bye-bye.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
It's the final week to see how you can win big, as there's an incredible £54,321 in tax-free cash to be won. What would you spend it on? The holiday of a lifetime? Or just sit back, relax and remove some of those day-to-day financial stresses? Lines close on the 1st of August, so make sure you don't miss out. For another chance to win, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB14 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 1st of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom with Andrew and Beth.
Hello everyone, Patrick Christie is here.
I'm Michelle Chu, Britain's News Channel.
Access the stories that matter to you. Take the GB News family with you on any device. And as long as you have an internet connection, tune in to GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's News Channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Dordme, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power?
Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber.
Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics.
We'll see where this ruling takes us.
These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
It's 11 a.m. on Saturday, the 26th of July. Live across the United Kingdom, this is Saturday Morning Live.
Well, President Donald Trump has started his visit to Scotland by teeing off on the golf course this morning. Touching down last night, he sent shockwaves around the world. The US president warned our continent to act now on immigration because it is killing Europe.
On immigration, you better get your act together, or you're not going to have Europe anymore. You got to get your act together.
President there speaking to our own Beverly Turner. But while in Scotland, the President is set to meet the Scottish First Minister and our Prime Minister, with trade at the top of the agenda.
I like your Prime Minister. He's slightly more liberal than I am, as you've probably heard, but he's a good man. He got a trade deal done.
Yes, Donald Trump has now taken residence in his Turnberry resort here in Scotland at the beginning of a 5-day stay while he'll look over his golf courses. Later on over the weekend, he will travel to Aberdeen to open his new course, along with a memorial garden for his Scottish mother.
And in a GB News exclusive, a Christian preacher who was arrested for a hate incident after he questioned Islamic beliefs has said that he's been vindicated after charges against him were dropped. We'll be speaking to that ex-miner and Christian preacher live in a moment.
Elsewhere, the resident doctors' strike enters its second day as they call for a 29% pay increase, while Anna Riley is on the ground in Leeds.
Health Secretary Wes Streeting has slammed this strike action, saying it's unjustified and shows disdain to patients. But resident doctors are asking for £23 an hour and will remain on strike until Wednesday.
And Sir Keir Starmer has rejected calls to immediately recognise a Palestinian state. That's despite pressure from over 200 MPs from all political parties.
And the annual gathering for people passionate about countryside pursuits and the great British countryside will be covering that, a celebration of rural life and the beauty of the British landscape. The biggest stories, the boldest opinions and the liveliest debates over the next hour. I'm Miriam Cates.
And I'm Charlie Peters, and your weekend starts here. I need to correct myself. I said all political parties on that 200 MPs. Not sure that's true. It is a cross-party letter, though. A lot of people, Miriam, are a bit upset about that letter because they're essentially saying you're rewarding terrorism because they've started this war. It's led to quite serious violence, obviously, and they're now saying recognise that state.
Absolutely, and you know, of course, the pictures coming out of Gaza are absolutely horrific. The war's been going on such a long time, the conditions there are terrible. But on the other hand, if Hamas released the hostages, if they brought their bodies and the people hopefully still alive back to Israel, the war would end. So it's, you know, you can see it from both sides, but it's an impossible situation, isn't it?
And Miriam, there's also quite a lot of pressure on one of the sort of the babies of your period in Parliament, the Online Safety Act. That's getting some criticism now. And,
from you, yes.
From me, and millions of others, I should stress.
Absolutely.
Who are worried about online censorship. Some protests last night couldn't be viewed on X. There'll be debates about that too.
Absolutely. I think we should be very nervous about feeling sorry for the tech companies who, I'm not claiming that legislation is perfect at all. It really isn't. And the role of Ofcom in this should be absolutely questioned. But nevertheless, the idea that we should do nothing to prevent children watching some pretty horrific content online, I just think is unjustifiable.
Well, you know what we think. What do you think? Send your views, post your comments, visit gbnews.com/your say. But before we get into that, let's hear from Bethany Elsey with all our latest news headlines.
Thank you both. Good morning. Your latest headlines from the GB newsroom at 11:04. The US president is urging Britain to get its act together over what he called a horrible invasion of illegal migrants. Speaking to GB News after landing in Scotland, Donald Trump warned that Europe could be lost unless immigration is brought under control.
But on immigration, you better get your act together, or you're not going to have Europe anymore. You got to get your act together. Biden was a total stiff. And what he allowed to happen, but you're allowing it to happen to your countries. And you got to stop this horrible invasion that's happening to Europe. This immigration is killing Europe.
Has teed off at his Turnberry golf course in South Ayrshire. He's expected to hold meetings with the European Commission President tomorrow, the Prime Minister on Monday and Scotland's First Minister on Tuesday. The Prime Minister says the UK is working urgently to get British aid onto planes and into Gaza after Israel said it would allow some deliveries by air. Sir Keir Starmer also said the UK is seeking to evacuate children who are in critical need of medical treatment. It's as the World Food Programme reports malnutrition in Gaza is surging and some 90,000 women and children need care urgently. Sir Keir called the scenes utterly horrifying and said the denial of aid was completely unjustifiable. He's under growing pressure from MPs after 221 signed a letter urging the PM to join France in recognising a Palestinian state. But he said he would only take that step as part of a wider peace plan. Up to 50,000 resident doctors in England are striking for a second day as part of a 5-day walkout over pay. Their union, the BMA, is demanding a 29% pay rise to erase what it says is 17 years of pay erosion. The government is insisting it won't improve its offer of 5.4%. It says resident doctors have received the highest pay rise of any public sector employees over the last 3 years. The Health Secretary, Wes Streeting, has condemned the strike as reckless and said the government would not allow the BMA to hold the country to ransom. Well, resident Dr Becky Lavelle said current working conditions are impossible.
I would say that the chronic understaffing and under-resourcing of NHS hospitals put patients at risk every day. And part of why we're here today is to ensure that we keep enough staff on as doctors to actually keep the system going. Mr Streeting's comments have been very disappointing, but to be honest, I'm not surprised anymore. This is one of the reasons why we've had to go on strike, because it's the only way to get the government to negotiate with us.
18 people have been killed and 24 others injured after a bus overturned in Peru. The bus was carrying 66 passengers when it tipped in the Andes Mountains. Police, firefighters and local residents were involved in the rescue operations. Survivors are reporting there were mechanical issues with the bus before the crash. And keep your tab open and the drinks flowing. Pubs across the country can stay open longer tomorrow night to mark England's appearance in the Women's Euros final. Licensing hours have been extended, allowing pubs in England and Wales to keep serving until 1 a.m. The Lionesses are facing world champions Spain, which kicks off at 5 p.m. in the Swiss city of Basel. You're up to date. I'll have more for you in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you, Bethany, and welcome back to Saturday Morning Live with Charlie Peters and Miriam Cates.
Now, President Donald Trump has started his visit to Scotland by teeing off on the golf course this morning. Touching down last night, he sent shockwaves around the world as the US president warned our continent to act now on immigration because it is killing Europe.
Well, here's what he told GB News' Bev Turner, who was on Air Force One with the president.
On immigration, you better get your act together, or you're not going to have Europe anymore. You got to get your act together. Biden was a total stiff, and what he allowed to happen, but you're allowing it to happen to your countries. And you got to stop this horrible invasion that's happening to Europe. This immigration is killing Europe.
Well, GB News presenter Bev Turner joins us live from Glasgow. Bev, great to have you on Saturday Morning Live. You asked that question. I think you told me that nobody else was asking about immigration as the president arrived in Scotland. This is a massive issue on the continent, of course, especially with these protests outside the migrant hotels continuing.
That's right, Charlie. Good morning, both. Is it still morning? I'm slightly still on Washington, D.C. time. I was there all week preparing for the show that I'm going to be launching for GB News in September. But as of for yesterday, Charlie, yeah, there are 13 representatives of the media that get these precious seats on Air Force One, and GB News was fortunate enough to be one of them the day before yesterday. And it struck me that the questions being asked by the rest of what's called the pool, the journalists, were very much with an American focus. Now, the big story in America at the moment in relation to this administration is the Epstein files saga. Donald Trump is clearly quite tired of having to tackle that issue. It's obviously quite an irritating conversation for him to have for who knows what reasons behind the scenes. But here in the UK, it was so obvious to me, because we hear from it from our viewers and listeners all the time, and it always ranks high in the polls in terms of the list of issues that British people are concerned about, is illegal migration and the cost of that to the taxpayer and the lack of justice that we feel in relation to that issue. So for me, it was an obvious question to give to the president, particularly when he's going to sit down with the Prime Minister. We're hoping the Prime Minister might pick his brains a little on how to fix that particular issue, because boy, has Donald Trump fixed that in America. He said last month, not one person entered the country illegally. Now, you might say, all right, that's Donald Trump's superlative, that's how he talks. Even the left-wing press in America is reporting that as fact, because obviously I was there all last week. So, you know, I think it's a massive issue here. I'm hoping that it comes up in conversation with Keir Starmer. Whether he can offer any genuine advice, I don't know. I think it's a matter of will and a matter of whether you actually want to make that happen, whether you want to solve the illegal migrant crisis. Donald Trump clearly did, and he's come in and he has done that within the first 6 months of his coalition. I was talking to one member of the Trump team this week, very close to Donald Trump, who said to me, we have done so much in our first 6 months, we're not even sure what we're going to spend the next 3 years doing, because they've hit the targets with so much of the manifesto pledges that they came in on, that frankly they've got time to play with, in a sense. And so who knows what the next 3 years is going to bring in terms of that Donald Trump government. But at the moment, I think he's riding high on the successes.
Bev, one of the uncertainties over Trump's policies, certainly as far as European concerns, is over trade policy and tariffs in particular. And although the UK has secured a relatively good deal, considering the tariffs that have been imposed on other countries, some European firms are now really struggling. We've heard this week, Volkswagen have lost 1.1 billion euros in sales as a result of the tariffs. Has he spoken any more about that? We know he's going to meet Ursula von der Leyen from the EU. Do you think he's feeling favourably disposed to European trade negotiations?
I think the solution, the answer to that question, Miriam, is #America first. That is what underpins all of Donald Trump's policy. He makes no bones about that. He will do what is in the interests of the American people. While I was there this week, they signed a trade deal with Japan. In fact, Scott Bessent was in the restaurant where I was just as that was being signed. And I went and spoke to him about it, the Treasury Secretary, and he was saying, look, it's great. What we're doing is working. It's working for America. It's also working, as you say, for a lot of the countries who are doing these trade deals with the States. He obviously yesterday said to me how he was impressed that Keir Starmer had got the trade deal for America. Like you, I'm not sure it was the most favourable terms. I think we could have probably asked for perhaps a little bit more. But let's see what comes out of the meeting this week. And then we've got the state visit, of course, from Trump in September. This relationship that we have with him appears to be on very solid ground. If you remember when Keir Starmer was talking, I think it was at the Lord Mayor's banquet in December last year, and he made this speech about the fact that he doesn't have to choose between whether he favours the EU or America or China. Starmer trying to be, friends with everybody. Well, if you do have to make a choice at the end of the day as a country, I think we have to surely decide that our best ally, for all sorts of reasons, not least defence and security, should be the top of that list, America. So at the moment, what we're hearing from Donald Trump is that relationship is intact, that he obviously loves this country. He's setting up a memorial to his mother here this weekend, as well as the golf courses. He loves the UK, particularly a fond affection for Scotland. So for all of our sakes, all we can say is long may that continue.
OK, Bev Turner, thank you very much. Live in Glasgow, and good luck with the jet lag. Well, let's cross over now to Tony Maguire, who joins us from Turnberry. Tony, great to see you again this morning. We've just heard from Bev saying that Donald Trump, loves Scotland. He's very happy to be here. What have you seen him getting up to this morning?
Yeah, good morning. I mean, certainly Donald Trump does love Scotland, not just because it's his mother's homeland, but I mean, part of it, of course, because Scotland is the home of golf, and he has 2 world-class golf resorts here, one of them being right here in Turnberry, where he's going to be spending the next few days. And, today, certainly, it looks like the books are clear, and he's going to be enjoying it. Now, if we can just very quickly show you part of the seismic security operation here, certainly never seen anything like it for a Donald Trump visit. You know, up at the top of the building there are a perfect vantage point for many of the police in their overwatch position, and you know, right along further down the way we've got that massive, it's actually about 12-foot wide, huge Scotland flag that flies right above the clubhouse, and that is where Donald Trump has just teed off for the first hole. Now he is going to be making his way round the Ailsa course today. If he's in Scotland, you better believe that he's going to pack his clubs and he is going to be going round the course. And what a course this is, the Ailsa course, actually the 9th hole, it shoots right towards that iconic lighthouse right on the coast, big crashing waves coming up the cliffside, and that's widely accepted to be one of the best par 3s in the game. But of course further north in Aberdeen, where he's going to be going at the start of next week, well, Donald Trump is touting his new course to be the best 36 holes in golf. I can't wait till we see more of that next week. Not everybody is obviously too enamoured by the president being here. We saw lots of supporters lining the road as he's made his way down here last night. But there is going to be a couple of coordinated protests in Scottish cities today, one in Aberdeen, one in Edinburgh, and I think we might see a familiar face appearing at one of them later on, so stick with GB News through the day to see more of that.
Tony, thank you very much for that. I'm sure we'll be hearing plenty more from Trump and his golfing in the next few days. Well, it's the second day of yet another resident doctors' strike, but this time the government says that those doctors will feel the pain.
Now, up to 50,000 resident doctors have launched a 5-day strike demanding a 29% pay rise, despite them already having received a 28.9% pay boost in the past 3 years. Well, let's cross over now to GB News reporter Anna Riley in Leeds. Anna, what's the latest on this dispute?
Well, there's not the picket lines here in Leeds outside the General Infirmary like we saw yesterday, but this strike action is ongoing until Wednesday. It's a dispute about pay. Junior doctors, they're now called resident doctors, are asking for £23 an hour. They're currently on around £17.50 an hour, and they say that is because their pay has not risen in line with inflation since 2008. So they said they feel that they've had a real terms pay cut in a way over the last 17 years because their salary's not gone up in line with inflation, with the rising cost of living. It's not the first time either, is it, that the junior doctors, the resident doctors, have been out on strike from 2023 to 2024. It was a lot of trade unions coming out on strike, including resident doctors. That meant that there was 1.5 million appointments that were cancelled across those striking days. It was the longest dispute in NHS history industrially, and it also cost the taxpayer £1.7 billion. So these 5 days of strike action are certainly going to be costly. Now, we spoke to resident doctor Becky Lavelle about why she and other resident doctors are striking.
So I would say that the chronic understaffing and under-resourcing of NHS hospitals put patients at risk every day. And part of why we're here today is to ensure that we keep enough staff on as doctors to actually keep the system going. Mr. Streeting's comments have been very disappointing, but to be honest, I'm not surprised anymore. This is one of the reasons why we've had to go on strike, because it's the only way to get the government to negotiate with us.
Do you think this will be the last of the strike action, or would you ask for more after this?
So we're asking for pay restoration. That actually hasn't changed at all since 2022. So it's entirely within the government's remit to make that decision. I'd be absolutely delighted if I didn't have to stand outside the hospital anymore and I could go back to work. But at the moment, that's just impossible.
This strike action's been organised by the British Medical Association representing resident doctors, but their actions have been slammed by Wes Streeting, the Health Secretary. He's labelled this strike action as unjustified, and he said that it shows disdain towards patients and the wider NHS. Of course, as well, Prime Minister Keir Starmer yesterday tried a last-minute attempt to call off that strike action, but it is still going ahead. It's due to end at 7 o'clock in the morning on Wednesday, and there's been mixed opinion from the public as well when I've been speaking to people. Some people have been in favour of it. They say that junior doctors, resident doctors work hard, they've got a lot of student debt, they can see why. There was a lot of honking of horns at the picket line yesterday in Hull, but there has also been anger from patients as well, saying that the NHS is already in crisis, and especially those people that will be having their appointments cancelled won't be happy about this strike action. But resident doctors say that this is what they've got to do in order to get a pay rise, and they've not ruled out any further strike action as well. They've said that they've got a mandate to strike every month up until January if their demands are not met. So it's currently 5% that the government have offered them. They're asking for 29%. So let's see what happens across these next few days up until Wednesday and what the impact of this strike action will be.
Thank you, Anna, for that report. Well, still to come on Saturday Morning Live, John Steele, the Christian preacher who was arrested for a non-crime hate incident, will join us live in a GB News exclusive to tell us how he has been vindicated.
But next, we'll continue to reflect on President Trump's comments last night as he's visiting Scotland, and more of today's top stories. This is Saturday Morning Live, only on GB News. See you in a sec.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience, because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we are proud to stand for you, for the Britain you love, for the communities you live in. That's what makes us the fearless champions of Britain, its voices and its values. Because we, at GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You've read the headlines, you've heard what those in power have to say. How about now we actually get to the truth?
They would pay attention.
We go beyond the political theatre and tell you what's really going on behind the scenes. For a massive council tax hike, one of the biggest in the UK. Others follow their lines, but we go off script.
You sound like a broken record. You say that week after week.
Cutting through the narratives and giving you unique perspectives. That's Ben Leo Tonight, Saturdays and Sundays from 9 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power?
Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber.
Get behind the headlines with Chopper's political podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics.
We'll see where this ruling takes us.
These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's political podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk then?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact is Trump made a good start. No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Saturday Morning Live, and joining us now to look through the top stories of the day, we've got the head of campaigns at the Good Growth Foundation, can't get my words out today, Foundation, Teresa Bishop, and journalist at the Mail Online, Lettice Bromovsky. Thank you so much for joining us. Now let's start with this story about the Home Office warning asylum seekers that if they don't accept changes to their accommodation, so from hotels perhaps to homes in the community, they could be made homeless. Is this a good idea, Teresa?
Well, so I think the Home Office are probably thinking about this in a broader sense, including sort of the housing crisis and how that's affecting all of Britain. So the politics of this are probably right. But as I say, I think the issue is broader, and it's sort of about how people view public services and housing. There's clearly not enough there, not enough opportunity, and it's kind of seeping into this debate as well.
Nethys, are you a bit nervous about what's going to happen here? Because they want to shut down these migrant hotels, but they're not really proposing much of an alternative of where they might go. The problem isn't really the accommodation, it's their presence in the first place. People don't want them moving into sort of HMOs on their street either, do they?
Well, I do think there is some truth to that, actually, and I think that, like you're saying, this is just sort of moving the furniture around the room kind of thing, and really, if they really want to tackle this, they've got to speed up the processing of claims, they've got to speed up deportations and things like that. What we're seeing here, though, is definitely a hardening of policy around immigration, and actually it's what it is at the root is a reflection of a conservative policy that they had when trying to get asylum seekers onto the Bibi Stockholm back then. I think that it's going to be difficult to implement. Like we're saying, these are asylum seekers whose many of them, their claims are currently being processed. So if you are then pushing them out onto the street, if they've got nowhere to stay, how are you going to find them? How are you going to keep track of them? Where are they actually going to go?
Teresa, do you think the government is drawing the wrong conclusions from people's from the protests and people's unrest? It isn't the fact that they're in hotels and costing a lot of money. I mean, that's part of the problem. It's the fact that people have broken into the country illegally. They're not being deported. The numbers are accumulating. The small boat crossings are double last year. It's the whole issue of illegal immigration that's exercising people, not just the matter of where they happen to be housed.
Yeah, I mean, I think that works both ways. It works in terms of like the government's view of it and the public's view of it. So yes, of course, illegal immigration needs to be tackled in a more effective way. But also when we look at immigration and the sort of reasons why people are quite fearful and quite opposed to it, I think there's a bigger story there in terms of Brits not feeling like they have access to things like affordable housing. They don't have access to things like skills and training and ultimately public services. And there's just not enough support there, and it's heightening the sentiment that's all over the country at the moment.
And I know I'm banging on about this morning, but as you're talking about that public sentiment being heightened, people are also not able to actually watch footage of these protests. We saw on X last night that a lot of this was censored due to the Online Safety Act coming into play. So you have this increasing anger among people, Lettuce, people not able to see that this is being solved. And then if you try and talk about it or record footage about it, tech bosses are being threatened with arrest if they don't shut down harmful content. This is a bit of a tinderbox now, isn't it? This is getting particularly dangerous.
It definitely is, and they're getting opposition from all sides of it. There are people also within the Labour government. This wouldn't be seen necessarily as a Labour policy to be pushing people out and making them homeless on the streets. So there'll be pushback from within government. Under international law, you have a right that you have to sort of house asylum seekers. If they are then sort of pushed them out onto the streets, likely we'll get even further pushback on international law. Keir Starmer at the moment is under a huge amount of pressure from all sides, and I think that is doubled by having Trump up in Scotland at the moment, where he doesn't want to put a foot wrong. They're having a meeting later on today, and that's going to be about business and trade, whether we can get better trade deals. So there's a lot going on Keir Starmer's plate right now.
Well, let's move on to a slightly different law and order story. This is a piece in the Times that says that English police forces have loosened their fitness test requirements and essentially are allowing less fit or less well-trained officers to join and stay in the force. Do you think this is a problem, Teresa?
Well, so obviously this is an issue that matters to the public a lot, but we have to acknowledge the fact that the ultimate bottom line is that there's a staffing crisis. If we want more police officers, we may just need to be more flexible. Whether this exact measure is the right or wrong step is to be debated, but absolutely, we need to make sure that we can get more people into those jobs to make sure that sort of crime gets to a measurable level.
Lettuce, Teresa just says we need to be more flexible here. It seems like flexible waistbands to me, because this is the test they need here. It's level 3.7 on the bleep test, which is equivalent to 3 minutes and 8 seconds of light jogging. I live in London. I do often see police chases, and you do see altercations with people all the time. And quite a lot of the time, people are getting quite a considerable distance away from coppers, Yeah,
I was actually going to court the other day and saw 2 young boys jump over a fence in front of me. Chased behind them were 2 further officers, but the distance was getting wider and wider. And if they are having to chase down young people like this who are very fit and moving around, it is a bit of a concern around public confidence in the police force that if we do have the easier system, although we do want more police force in, are they going to be able to do their job properly? Are we going to have a confidence crisis in the police again.
Miriam, you just come back from holiday. Did you see lots of fitter
I wasn't
police
going
officers
to speak
in
about
France?
that live on air, Charlie, but now that you mention it, I have to say, the gendarmes are in much better physical shape than our police force.
Miriam,
Leave it like that.
assessing the constabulary wherever she goes.
Really, it's very important for public safety.
That's exactly the measure we should be taking.
Moving on, do we have time for another story? Probably not. Well, very briefly, of course, Keir Starmer has been rejecting calls from his MPs to recognise Palestine as a state, following calls from President Macron, who is probably trying to deflect headlines from his domestic troubles, calling for the Palestinians to have their own state. Do you think Starmer is right to hold the line on this?
So I think the PM is very mindful of the fact that the Trump visit is currently front of mind for a lot of people, rightly or wrongly. Obviously, this crisis that we're seeing in Gaza is at the top of news agendas also. What the PM has said is that he is rejecting sort of immediate recognition without a longer-term plan. We're seeing the situation escalate, so it's clear that more action will be needed much sooner. I do think he will be kind of following suit with Macron, but for the moment, the focus seems to be elsewhere.
All right, Teresa, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you very much for your time. It's the final week now to see how you could become £54,321 richer in our biggest cash giveaway to date. The lines close on Friday, the 1st of August, so make sure you don't miss out. And here are all the details you'll need to be in it to win it.
It's the final week to see how you could win big. It's our biggest cash prize to date, an incredible £54,321 in tax-free cash has to be won. What would you do with that? With all of that cash, you could just chill out, treat yourself and indulge in the finer things in life, somewhere like here, Downhall Hotel and Spa. You really could win the cash giveaway of the summer. Lines close at 4 p.m. this Friday, so make sure you don't miss out.
For another chance to win, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB14 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 1st of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Well, lots more to come on today's show. But first of all, let's get the news headlines with Bethany Elsey.
Your top stories from the GB newsroom at 11:30. The US president arrived in Scotland with a warning that Europe could be lost unless immigration is brought under control and urges Britain to get its act together. The Prime Minister says the UK is working urgently to get British aid onto planes and into Gaza after Israel said it would allow some deliveries by air. Thousands of resident doctors in England are striking for a second day as part of a 5-day walkout over pay. The BMA union is demanding a 29% pay rise. 18 people have been killed and 24 others injured after a bus overturned in the Andes Mountains in central Peru. And pubs across England and Wales can stay open until 1 a.m. tomorrow night to mark the Lionesses' place in the Women's Euros final. Those are the latest headlines. More in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you, Bethany. Well, still to come, we'll be heading to Worcestershire to the National Gamefair, where people who are interested in countryside sports have their annual gathering.
Yeah, that'll be with Jack Carson. But up next, we've got an exclusive report of an ex-minor Christian preacher who was arrested after he refused to give his details over an alleged hate incident. What did he do? He asked a question about the Quran. He'll be joining us in a moment for all the latest on that controversy.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m.
Only on GB News.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
Good afternoon, Britain. A cheerful lollipop man's signature high fives have been stopped in their tracks.
Oh dear. Well, Neil Cotton, believed by local children... sorry. I'll start that all over again. This is a chap called Neil Cotton, and he's beloved by local kids in Howden, East Yorkshire. And he's been told by the council to stop the friendly high-fiving gesture, all in the name of health and safety.
But many parents and motorists are calling it nonsense. No surprises there. So apparently this chap, 57 years old, he spent the last 2 years brightening up the school run in the East Yorkshire town of Howden. There he is, looks like a nice guy, doesn't he? He has a cheerful attitude. He has his signature high fives. The children love it, the parents love it, he loves it. But no, the council says, get on with your job and stop the high fives.
This is the one area of employment where the council's trying to chivvy people on and get them to work harder rather than less hard. But I mean, what have we done in this country where we've sort of abandoned our sense of whimsy? I think adding a sense of whimsy to all jobs, I think, is a fundamental productivity measure, actually. I think if you're enjoying what you're doing, you're going to be doing it better. People are going to go into school or away from school with a smile on their face. What a joyful thing in a town in Yorkshire. I mean, amazing, brilliant. And yet, no, of course, the clipboards have to come out and the dour library monitor style individuals. I bet they're all library monitors at school. They've just got to tell people that they can't have fun.
Yeah, so the children have to be shooed along. They can't be distracted by such frivolities as a high five.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Saturday Morning Live. Now, a Christian street preacher arrested in Rotherham town centre after asking a Muslim woman about the Quran's teaching on domestic violence has said that he feels vindicated after charges against him were dropped.
Yes, former miner John Steele was arrested and told he faced a non-crime hate incident on his record after a discussion with a Muslim woman in the South Yorkshire town. Charlie, you've been following this. What's going on here? Well, this is remarkable stuff. We've got some footage we can show you in a moment of when John was arrested. He's been preaching in Rotherham for 25 years and in South Yorkshire. He saw this stall about domestic violence and approached them to ask them about Islamic teachings on how men should treat their wives. Very soon after, swarmed by police officers. Let's have a watch.
The world's gone mad.
This is the world we live in, and she's felt uncomfortable enough to come and tell a police officer. So I think it was your delivery.
I asked a simple question.
We are recording an incident, a hate incident.
In order to record, I am not.
For your understanding,
I am not admitting to something.
So as we can explain what's happening. We're not asking you to admit. We're not asking to admit it.
Oh,
We're
no,
stating there's an allegation. You don't have to admit anything, but there's an allegation of an incident that's happened. That incident is a hate incident. We require details to report that, and therefore, if you don't provide your details under the section
50 of Police Reform Act,
under the ASB Act, you are required to give details, and we have a power of arrest to obtain those details, which we don't want to go down. It's not necessary. Yeah, she's hoping that common sense might prevail eventually when we do lock him up, because we're going to present him for not to obtain his details.
Yeah.
And if he fails to provide, at some point along that journey, he'd like to think the light might shine.
Right, okay, John, as you're known as, 1347, you're under arrest. Okay. You're not providing your details under Section 50 of Police Reform Act. All right,
so we're going to have to ascertain who you are.
The arrest is necessary to ascertain your details. All right, you don't have to say anything with my own defence. You do not mention my questions much later in court. Anything you do say, maybe giving evidence.
extraordinary footage there, Miriam, of John Steele being told it was a hate incident, and one police officer saying that she hoped common sense would prevail once he was arrested. Well, let's speak to John now, the Christian street preacher at the heart of this story, who joins us live. John, thank you and good morning to you. Tell me,
good morning.
What was your reaction when those police officers first approached you?
Well, I wonder what they wanted, really. I mean, because incident were about an hour before, so when she said it, I was shocked. You know, that's all I can say, really. I was a bit flabbergasted.
Now, John, the police officer said it was a hate incident. Talk to us about the interaction you had with the Muslim woman behind that stall.
Yeah, I mean, it was only a short encounter. I mean, as a preacher, you're trying to engage with people. You're trying to look at things to hook into, and obviously this was a stall about domestic abuse for ethnic minorities. I mean, domestic abuse is a terrible thing, but obviously, as a Christian, I know the teachings of some of the teachings of the Quran, and I know that in Surah 4:34 it talks about a Muslim being able to strike his wife if she's not towing the line. And so I just asked how she reconciled what she was doing with her belief in Islamic belief.
John, did this lady give you any indication that she wanted to end the conversation before she did call the police? I mean, if she didn't want to talk, that's her legitimate right. She could have just asked you to go away.
Yeah, when I asked her I asked her if she was a Muslim, and she smiled and nodded, and then I asked the question. She stood up, showing me a leaflet. Then I just asked her, again how she would reconcile the teachings of the Quran with what she was doing, but simply asked her to consider that Jesus taught a man to love his wife and to lay down his life for her, the exact opposite of what Muhammad taught, and that I hope she'd look to Christ and his forgiveness. And then I walked away. I mean, it was very brief, about 30 seconds.
Right, but John, the police seem to believe that this was an antisocial act, and so they asked for your details for a non-crime hate incident, which doesn't require any evidence, just an allegation. And when you didn't give that, you were arrested. What happened after you were arrested when that footage ends?
Well, they put me in the car, and as they were driving, they kept telling me that if I gave my details, it could all end. They'd let me go. And that they asked that, 3 or 4 times on the way to the police station. But for me to give my details is admitting that I'm guilty of something that I'm not. I mean, I'm not hating anybody. Neither would I encourage anybody to hate anybody. As a Christian, I love Muslims, and my desire is for their good, not for their ill. Just to say that asking somebody a question is hateful, is frightening, really. It's scary.
John, are you concerned about the legislation being looked at in Parliament at the moment to criminalise Islamophobia, something that's very, very difficult to define? Do you fear that potential legislation could actually make a situation like this even worse?
Well, absolutely. I mean, what about workplace? Where does it, what's it going to affect? I mean, conversation is going to be shut down, and that's, and it shouldn't be. I mean, a healthy society should be able to question, ask, investigate. I mean, that's what it's about. I mean, as a Christian, I go on streets and I'm open to be questioned. I'm open to be challenged. And I believe if you're secure in what you believe, that should pose no threat.
John, there is a horrible irony.
If you're not, then you're going to put up the barriers, and that's what they seem to be doing.
Sorry for interrupting you there, John, but there seems to be a really horrible irony at the heart of this issue, in that you were preaching in Rotherham, a town where the police totally failed to prosecute child abusers for many decades, in particular those from the Pakistani Muslim community in that town and around South Yorkshire. There are many critics still who say they haven't done enough to deal with the grooming gangs issue in the town. Is it your view that they were showing that level of protection for this Muslim woman that reflects that they still are affected by that mentality of protection for that community?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. There's no question about it. Yeah, I mean, people feel it. People know it in the town, you know. So yeah, it's a dark cloud hanging over, and you know, and people still don't believe that it's really been dealt with. So, you know, people want justice.
John, just very briefly, there was some polling yesterday that revealed around half the British public don't think that Islam is actually compatible with Western society, with British society. Would you agree with that? We're talking about Islam, obviously, not Muslims themselves.
Well, I believe what the Bible says. Jesus said, no kingdom divided against itself can stand. Every household divided will fall. So you've got to have something that knits society together, you know, a common belief, a common, you know, ideas. I mean, I'm not saying that, you know, people shouldn't come in, but when you've got two cultures clashing like this, it's scary. It really is. And, you know, and one trying to dominate the other, that's how it appears, by, you know, silencing, browbeating. And so, no, I don't think Islam is compatible.
OK.
Absolutely.
John, we'll have to leave it there, but thank you very much for speaking to us this morning. Ex-miner, bus driver, street preacher, and I have to say, you know, I don't think particularly intimidating either. Absolutely. Well, now, a spokesman from South Yorkshire Police said that the footage of the incident has been reviewed by its professional standards department. It's been determined that a proportionate response was delivered by its officers. They had not received a complaint in relation to this incident, and they are going to reflect and consider any potential learning.
Well, still to come, we'll be joined by Jack Carson, who's been at the Gamefair, Alcester, celebrating the best of British countryside. But first, if you're in search of some holiday sun, here's the forecast for some of the top European destinations.
You're looking happy.
Well, the forecast looks good.
So you've sorted the travel insurance then?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Big contrast across Europe this weekend. Thunderstorms for Central Europe, cooler than normal in Spain, very hot across Greece and Cyprus. We've got a keen breeze continuing to blow through Portugal into the Canaries and Madeira. Plenty of sunshine for Spain, but actually temperatures limited, particularly towards northeast Spain. A few showers there for south of France, but the liveliest downpours will be through the Alps, and then it stays hot in Greece, at least until the start of next week.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Britain's Newsroom, weekday mornings from 9:30.
Poll, it doesn't surprise either Bev or I, shows that most Brits believe that Britain is in decline. 76% of us, though, did surprise. We fear political unrest and even violence.
And those fears come amid violent riots, of course, in Ballymena in Northern Ireland. They've left dozens of police officers injured and the area largely destroyed in some cases, particularly the local leisure centre.
Let's talk to our Northern Ireland reporter, Doogie Beattie. Doogie, this report comes on the back of sustained riots over, 6 days in the province?
They are putting undocumented immigrants into areas of high deprivation. There is a group here called Mears. 85% of their properties are in socially deprived areas, and those areas are now kicking back, because in amongst those areas you have pensioners and so forth that have bought their houses back in the 80s. I spoke to a couple of them that were having to be moved out by their grandchildren.
Well, we know that people are not happy with. I think first thing to say is that people are worried about their living standards. They think they've declined. And actually, strikingly, in a different part of the survey, we found that 4 in 10 people feel like they were worse off since the COVID pandemic. That was actually particularly pronounced amongst reform voters. But overall, people are very pessimistic about their personal finances and their cost of living. So I think that's a huge driver. We also know that people aren't happy with the government's handling of immigration. And actually, going back to that question about what's affecting people's living standards, which I think is a much better way of getting at how people are feeling about things like the economy, people perceive, including Labour voters, including a sizable chunk of Labour voters, that immigration has had a negative impact on their living standards. And I do think we're starting to see that filter through into pessimism about the country as a whole.
GB News, the People's Channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Our reporter Jack Carson has been at the Gamefair in Worcestershire today. Here's his report.
So we are here today at the Gamefair at Ragley Hall, and really today is all about a celebration of countryside life and also about conservation as well. Shooting, so much going on here. We've got horse trials, everything. And Gareth Doherty from the British Association of Shooting and Conservation, you're the Director of Shooting Operations. You join us now. Just kind of tell us a little bit about what this event is all about here.
So for us, from a show point of view, this is the pinnacle of the year, if you like. It's the biggest game fair that there is in the country. So it's a celebration of everything that shooting has to offer. As you can see, it's worth 500 million from a conservation point of view, but over 3 billion to the UK economy. So it's providing jobs, it's creating habitats, we're helping with species, we're looking after carbon. So it's explaining to all the people that are coming here to enjoy a part of the countryside, or our members as well, just what benefit we have to society.
Because there are critics of shooting and shooting game and that kind of area. What do you say to those critics? You pointed out some of the benefits that you say it has to the economy. So what do you say to those critics who maybe criticise you and some elements of what you do?
I think the world, it's very easy to paint the world in very much a black and a white, right and wrong. I think actually what we want to do is we want to take people out. We want to get them to meet the local gamekeepers, come out with the shoots, experience what a shooting day is like, come and see some of the wonderful cover crops and the songbirds, and come and see some of the hedgerows and the water management that goes on, and see some of those passionate wildfowlers that are out there protecting that coastal habitat, and realise that what we're about is harvesting wild food.
Just break down that contribution, that £3.3 billion to the economy. Just break that down into where that money is generated from, what kind of areas, sectors that money is generated from.
Yeah, so it's the full plethora of everything. So it's the direct employment through shooting that shooting has through the gamekeepers and through the shoots themselves. But then it's the add-on businesses. So if you think about it, from the simple route would be the manufacturers, the clothing manufacturers, the people selling the equipment. But then we actually move out to the restaurants and the pubs and the hotels. All of those that are getting that benefit from shooting in what we call the shoulder season. So as soon as the tourists leave, then the shooters arrive. It takes you through that quieter period, and it helps all of those tourist business survive throughout the year. So it's a really valuable resource for them.
I suppose a lot of those businesses as well are small, they're independent businesses, and I guess right now with the economy as it is, they need that support. They need the support from the public to be able to sustain themselves into the future.
Yeah, no, we are really, really proud in the relationships that those local shoots can build with those local pubs and restaurants or delis. They can get that vital quality food out. They're providing that accommodation for those people that are enjoying the countryside. So there is this sort of circular benefit that it has.
Well, Gareth Doherty, thank you so much for giving us that insight about what today is all about and this event is all about. But actually, the contributions you heard there, more than £3 billion generated to the economy through shooting and conservation. And we're here today to find out all about it.
Thanks, Jack. That's all for next week. This week.
This week.
I had one line.
Dawn Neeson's up next now.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, this is your GB News weather update provided by the Met Office. Mixed is probably a good word to describe this weekend. Whilst high pressure is trying to build in from the Atlantic and provide some relatively settled conditions, it's not quite managing to reach all across the UK, and so we do still have some showers around. They've generally been on the light side so far this morning, but as we head into the afternoon, we could see them turning heavier at points, particularly across parts of East Anglia and other areas of eastern England. We could see some quite sharp downpours, maybe even the odd rumble of thunder to watch out for into this afternoon. Will generally remain quite cloudy across the eastern half as well. The areas further towards the west, though, should see some sunshine breaking through, and we'll see temperatures peaking here at around 25, maybe 26 degrees Celsius. Some sunshine also for Northern Ireland and Northern England, but probably keep the brollies on hand in case a few scattered showers do crop their way up. And similar conditions for the eastern side of Scotland as well. Quite nice in the sunshine here, but we'll start to see longer spells of rain arriving for western Scotland later this afternoon and into the evening. Those could turn heavy for a time as well. It will be relatively breezy into the night as that system pushes its way in. Quite a damp night to come for northwest Scotland, but elsewhere we will start to see some clearer spells developing, and temperatures will be on the relatively mild side, and our towns and cities will hold up in double-digit figures, but we could just drop down into single figures where you hold on to some of those clearer skies first thing tomorrow morning. This rain in the northwest could also provide the odd rumble of thunder across Scotland as we head throughout Sunday. It will eventually break up more into a showery situation as it pushes across northern England and into parts of Northern Ireland as well. Again, there'll be some showers developing elsewhere during the day. A reasonable amount of cloud around tomorrow though, so temperatures will be a notch down, more around 23-24 degrees Celsius as our high temperatures. Monday, though, looks generally on the dry side for many of us, but the showers are quick to return as we head into the middle part of the week. Maybe warmer and more humid for some of us as well, though. Bye-bye.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
It's the final week to see how you can win big, as there's an incredible £54,321